All right, we are now on the line with Mr. Kirby Alexander, Kirby the Voice. Kirby, that's your shoot name, right? Kirby Alexander, or is there something else we should know?
Kirby the Voice Alexander is the work name. It's very similar to my shoot name. It's my first name and middle name, so
Okay,
nothing special there. But yeah, it flows a lot easier than Van Vliet. I didn't want people messing that up.
right.
So I just figured Kirby Alexander, nice and short, two first names, often done in professional wrestling a lot.
Yep.
So it just kind of made sense.
Yeah, I guess in this instance, you can trust a man with two first names, although most people don't like to. Uh, but it's great to have you on. I mean, it's been. I just want to first off say thank you. Excuse me. I had a big like in between lunch and dinner, so if I'm just burping throughout this whole podcast, I apologize. But thank you for your flexibility. I mean, we've rescheduled on you twice now. You probably don't even want to do this podcast anymore, right?
No, I mean, I'm really happy to be on Russell Talk and Randomness. I think that's really that you guys are having me on. I've been listening to you guys for a long time, and no,
Yeah.
I do think we had this conversation. Probably 2 years ago. I think it was at a Zello show at Jimmy's when we first talked about it. And life happens. Life happens to people. Pandemics happen to people. And here we are. But no, I'm over the moon, man. I'm very, very happy to be here with you guys. I really do feel you're doing a lot of good for the business. So yeah, I'm pleased, man.
Yeah, no, that's funny. You've been someone who's always been on our list, but yeah, and credit to Wrestle Talker Randomist, Kurt, or Hank and Nerd. They had you on, and so then we were like, okay, that was a really good, awesome conversation with Kirby. We can put him at the end of the list for a while, let some time pass, and then some new things will happen and occur. And then for whatever reason, for no offense, for whatever reason, we just kept like having other things come up. And but now, I mean, we had a little bit more free time. We wanted to get you at the collective, but we drank like an amazing amount of seltzers that day and just didn't want to do it the next day. So once again, you had stuff going on too, so we were like, no worries.
Yep.
But yeah, you've done a ton of ring announcing, and I think that's one of the things. Well, obviously how we know you, but obviously one of the reasons we want to have you on too is because we like to have on friends, not just wrestlers, and also people that contribute to wrestling in a certain way. And with your ring announcing, like you'll pick up some different stories and things that you just wouldn't hear from like a normal podcast. So you're a unique individual, so to speak.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a note here that I think Chris wrote this down. The amount of oxygen in this man's lungs is unbelievable. Chris, was that you?
That was me. I was putting together a quick little intro for Kirby here. And it's true. I mean, I think the most, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the most famous intro of Kirby, or the most memorable for me, is the Gringo Loco, like the Gringo oh, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Gringo even like he's even done posing. He's like, oh, should I do more? Because Kirby's still going. So yeah, like I mean, it's you have a very unique voice, hence the voice, and
Right.
like those entrances, like it just feels right. And it might be a weird comparison, Kirby, but allow me to make this comparison. Like to me, is like when I hear you ring announce, it's like it's how I feel when I will listen to JR be on the commentator table back in the Attitude Era. Like it just feels right.
Yeah, I try to bring that element. I try to really mix the old school and the somewhat new school approach. First and foremost, I always want to be respectful of the business and play my role in the business, and that to me is to get the boys over and the girls in this age, but to get the workers over. It's not about me. Now, yes, I do dress a little flamboyant. I do dress but I dress flamboyant, but it's still in a professional way, because I'm just trying to bring attention to the product, right? I'm just trying to enhance the product. I'm not trying to get myself over. There's been so many times where I've worked shows and people come up to me afterwards and they're like, what is your name even? Like, you never say your name. It's because it's not about me.
Yeah.
People get to learn my name eventually, but I don't open up with, hey, Kirby the Voice Alexander here, and this is Freelance. No, this is Freelance.
Right.
And that's what we're here for, or whichever show I'm doing. And, I'm just another tool to get the company over and to get the guys over. And yes, I developed a little bit of a gimmick with the sustain, the lungs, the oxygen, as you were talking about. And you hit it on the head. I can't remember which came first. I want to say it was either Isaiah Velasquez or Gringo Loco. I started experimenting. I started experimenting with both of them at the same time because the that's another great spot to hold it.
Right.
And Gringo, as you said. So it was right around the same time that I played around one day and just I was going long, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how long I can go. And and as I was doing it, then I started to see and hear the reaction in the room. I'm like, oh, people are impressed by this. They're digging it. But not so much impressed by it. They're getting hype by it. Because what am I if I'm not a hype man, right? I mean, that's kind of my job. I'm like the opening act for a comedian or whatever. I'm in there to warm the room up, right? So when I do that, if I'm warming them up for a match and I hear them start to get hyped because they're hearing their favorite name be said with such vim and vigor, I'm like, oh, I think I'm onto something here. So those were the two I kind of reserved it for a while. And then it just became more and more and more of a thing.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I actually play with it because I even surprised myself because I have like an internal monologue while I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, you should probably stop now. You're starting to run out of breath. No, fuck that. You can go longer. Nope. You're about to blow out your voice. You still have like 8 more matches. You probably shouldn't do that. No, man, keep it going. Keep it going. They're hot. And then it's just like, and then when I feel it, like I can actually feel it before I can hear it. I can feel like, oh, the crack is about to come. And I try to cut it off before my voice cracks. Now, you may have noticed there's been times in the last year or two where like I have gone too far and the voice is cracked. But then I just kind of play it off. Like I change the sound of it or whatever and kind of turn the crack into sound in a different way. So I just go higher because I do a lot of low. So sorry, my voice is going out now.
Ironically.
But Gringo and like the O and the I use those as a more guttural tone. But then if the voice cracks, I just take it higher. So Gringo.
Yeah.
And I played with it. So I kind of, just like you would if something goes wrong in a match or whatever, you turn lemons into lemonade. And then the crowd still eats it up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting.
All right. So before we even like start asking, because I'm about to start asking questions, and we have a whole we're doing a buffet line. So for those who are not familiar with the buffet line style of episode,
aren't the buffets shut down right now? Are we not supposed to be doing this? Is this illegal?
This is your socially distant buffet line.
Okay.
Right. I think this might be the only existing buffet that is going to continue on past this pandemic. So we have the salad bar. If you remember back in the day when there were buffets, there was a salad bar. And in this case, the salad bar is just quick, fresh takes, getting to know you, which we're starting to dabble a little bit into that. And then we have the hot plate, your main course, the meaty conversations, meaty topics. And then we have the dessert, which is guilty pleasures, fun questions, and then we have a fun game at the end that is called word association. So we'll get all into that. But I think it's time for us to step into the salad bar and get things rolling.
I usually skip the salad bar, but that's okay.
Well, let's start off by that. Like if we're talking about salads, and this is the last question of the salad bar, but I'll start off with that. What is your favorite part of a salad?
Virtually none of it. It would have to be like I don't like lettuce. I don't like tomatoes. So I'm not really a salad guy. So like eggs, like when eggs are put on a salad, or bacon, bacon's a really good salad component.
Yep, those count.
Croutons. I'm really into croutons. Cheese.
Same.
So just about everything you put on the lettuce and tomatoes, I'm cool with. And even a weirder thing. So I do, because we're all always trying to be a little healthier, right? And a lot of times people think, well, I need to start eating salads. I need to start eating more vegetables. That's how I'm going to become healthier. So I've experimented with that throughout the years. And I've found for me that the greener the lettuce, the better. Like I can't eat the spines, like the white stuff.
Okay.
I ignore that like the plague.
Yeah.
Like I have to have like,
you.
yeah. So the greener, like softer stuff, but that hard white stuff, no, you can miss me with that.
Gotcha. And I thought I was I felt like the crouton answer was bound to come up here. Charlie and a lot of our guests are crouton enthusiasts.
Yeah, very
on the
popular
salad.
answer, but I think it deserves it. So yeah, you said all the guilty pleasure stuff of the salad, but I mean, it sounds like a great salad. Shit,
It's the stuff that makes the salad no longer healthy.
Yeah,
the problem.
exactly.
It's like, you just screwed the pooch. Like you went from having something that was good for you to like mainlining grease and everything else again. So whatever.
Yeah, whatever works. Hey, if that's your salad, that's your salad. Chris, did you want to continue through?
Yeah. So, and we always try to shy away from that initial question on what got you into wrestling or whatever. But I think there's a different take, a slightly different take of what part of wrestling do you love? Like, what is that thing that keeps you bringing you back to wrestling?
Yeah, man, that's really cool. A lot of it at this stage is a lot of it's the camaraderie. So it's it's being around people and a place and an element that I love, and that's from the wrestlers to the fans and everyone in between. It's that. And for me, so on a personal level, it's about performing. Never knew I was a performer, never knew that was an aspect of my life. But especially once the pandemic hit, not having that outlet anymore to be on a stage and to hear you guys feeding off of me and feeding into me, that's what really does it for me. And then also, it's just about the hunger right now, the indie scene, and the way the wrestlers, put their lives on hold, put their bodies on the line. Mm-hmm. It's the passion for me. It's these guys going out there doing everything they can, and sometimes and oftentimes too much, to get noticed. Mm-hmm. And for many of them, it pays off, and for some it doesn't. But I think that's the thing that really keeps me being a part of this, is because I love seeing what these guys are willing to do next, and just how far they're willing to go. And I'm very entertained by that. I'm entertained by that passion and that drive to succeed.
Yeah. I think that a couple of things you said earlier when you were kind of talking about your in-ring announcing was, well, Chris compared you to JR in a sense where, like, and I think this is true, JR also said too, it's all about getting talent over. You said those exact same words. So like you both are on that same wavelength, but Chris compared to you in the sense, like if we were to go back to freelance wrestling tomorrow, but for whatever reason you weren't there, it would be like a part of it was missing. So I feel like you being a performer and then being associated with, not just with freelance, but I think freelance is where my mind goes first. You do other, sure. let's not disregard the other promotions. Home. Really, yeah. And and yeah, I think if you're that essential, that if we were to go back tomorrow and you weren't there, it would feel like a part of it was missing. And I think that is true in a sense.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And that's, that's something that is on my mind a lot with the Chicago scene is, and I'm not, I don't want to take this into a kind of a sad take, but I'm getting older.
Yeah.
I'm not 60, 70 or 80, but I'm hitting 50 here pretty soon. I'm a year away.
Right.
And I do have some health concerns. I bet you, I'm sure you guys saw a couple years ago when I was wearing that vest. That was actually a shock vest because I have a heart condition that just came out of nowhere. Has nothing to do with my weight. For all you people just want to go, little fat guy. Of course you have a heart problem. Had nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
But because of those things, and because wrestling is one of those businesses where people tend to overstay their welcome.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that on my end of the business either. So I think about that a lot. I think about, I want to do the best I can for this business for however long that continues to be. But I've also started to think about like how can I leave it and make sure that it's still in great hands. So I've actually started not so much taking on like proteges or anything like that, but really getting in the ear of the younger ring announcers and kind of like, and showing them the way. And most of it is because they have come to me for it. So it's not so much that I'm trying to mold them in my fashion, but I want to make sure it's in good hands. I want to make sure that if in some case I can't do freelance anymore, that you've got Val up there killing it and doing a great job. And so every once in a while I'll miss a show and Val will fill in. And I've even thought about sometimes even almost purposefully missing a show, like just once or twice a year, to make sure she gets in so the crowd gets to know her more, so she gets more opportunities. And that way it can be more of a natural transition. So then if there ever is a reason that I have to step away, it won't be like, oh, it's just not the same anymore without him. Because I don't want it to be that. Because again, I'm just a tool to get everyone over. It's not about me. So I want it to be in good hands if I ever have to go. So
yeah, no, that's very well said. Speaking of overstaying your welcome, do you guys think that no, not to you, do you guys think that the Undertaker will ever wrestle again? Because it just feels like a whole charade to me. Very quickly, we don't have to go too deep into this, but
I was in Orlando when he left the stuff in the ring, and I thought that was the end then. And
same.
That's been 3 years ago now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know, man. Making $1,000 a pop on Cameo is pretty cool, but then
that is cool.
I'm sure it still pales in comparison to the money he was making, from working. But I'm sure he's going to get one of those Legends contracts,
right?
Where he's still getting paid, to be a part in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, I think it's time. I really do. I think we've seen most of everything that we want to see. From him, and I think we've seen the matches and the feuds. I think we've squeezed as much out of that as we should. And because what could possibly happen now, right? Now you could tarnish the legacy, and some people might say that he already has in some ways.
I would vote for that a little bit. Yeah, like I would vote for the leaving the gear, the leaving the gear in the ring just felt like the perfect send off, and like going through the stage, and I think our friend even Nancy tweeted that I don't know, she tweeted this maybe a little bit, like you said, it's been 3 years since it happened, or however much time, but she said like I want my tears back at one point. I remember a specific
Wow.
I remember a specific tweet, and she's like the biggest Undertaker mark you'll ever meet. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of that tarnishment, a little for me, a little bit like they should have just. It was almost just like, I don't know. Yeah, they were just parading him around like this. Look at this fossil. Look at this thing we have still. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for me, I think I'm with you guys. I would even say like if he just kind of like did his appearances like he's doing them now, like that's cool. Like I listened to I watched the Stone Cold One More Round interview, and he has mixed feelings about doing all these media appearances and just kind of exposing the business or pulling the curtain. I'm like, that's fine. He could do that at this stage now.
Yeah.
But I think he should have just kind of, after the streak ended, that was his time to just, on a clean slate, just walk away as the Undertaker. That didn't happen, but I think, like whatever, however they did it this time around, the Survivor Series, I actually watched that. I thought the Paul Bear hologram was super cool. And I'm like, that's the best they could have done at this point to try to, save that farewell, and I'm cool with it. If he doesn't come back into the ring, I'm okay with it.
Sure.
I mean, and there's so much else you can do, right? Like, do we need to keep going back to something that's been done for 30 years? No disrespect to the Undertaker.
Right.
Huge Undertaker fan.
Yeah, none of this is in disrespectful form. Yeah.
No, from the word go, I was enthralled with this larger than life, larger than death character, right? Let's say it that way. And he's entertained me for years and years and years, even through multiple incarnations. I enjoyed Biker Taker. I enjoyed it all. I
hate that Biker Taker. I hear negative things about it all the time. I did not hate it.
I didn't either. It. Yeah.
Yeah, that's who he really is. I mean, he's a biker. Like,
right.
It
felt like just a natural progression. It felt like, the ministry stuff, it was cool. It did cool things, but it was a little muddy. But yeah, to think, everything we've gotten 30 years out of a character. There's, and I know this gets said, and I'm sure you guys say it, there's so much left in the talent pool, right? Let's make room for some of these other guys. Let's not keep bringing back the Goldbergs and the Lesners and everybody else. There's so many new, fresh faces that are there and ready to perform and give you 30 years, give you another 30 years out of someone else. But I think they just sometimes, they should be one person, right? We should be talking about one person in particular. Vince wants to stick with what he knows and what he loves. And I think that's starting to be an archaic way of thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't mind if he even didn't come back for do like the Hall of Fame, but like if we never see him even do like an entrance again, not necessarily a match, but not even like an entrance, just like zero, cut it off right now. Cold turkey, never again, Undertaker.
Like the end of the Taker gimmick, like that's it. We're not gonna see it anymore. But he said it before too, like, and everybody says it, like never say never. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Interesting.
I mean, how many times did Terry Funk retire?
I don't even know that one. No, I have no clue.
It might be in double digits. I don't know. It's probably more than you can count on one hand, at least. But yeah, Terry Funk's had quite a few retirement matches and retirement shows.
Yeah, he's more of the like Randy the Ram, where like he can't give it up, right? Where Undertaker's probably like, I'm okay with this, but like I'm okay with not doing another match, but also like the money's really good,
right?
Maybe like probably a couple different motives there, but yeah. Well, I wanted to, Chris, I wanted to just do one more style question, unless you have anything else you want to hit. But Kirby, I wanted to know what your vocal warm up was like, and if you have one, and like, how do you even get your voice prepared to do a lot of O's for Gringo Loco?
I actually don't. I don't prepare unless I've got something going on. So like, if I was to have to do a show tonight or tomorrow with this little bit of a rasp you already hear, then I would. So if I know that I'm like, if I have a cold going on, or if my voice just isn't up to par, I drink a lot of hot tea with honey and lemon both. And if I do feel like if I'm not even starting to have a cold, but I'm like, my voice is not going to be 100% tonight, I'll bring throat lozenges with, and I'll pop those between announcing.
Okay.
So I guess almost like taking painkillers, before the match. But
you're roided up, brother.
Yeah. So I'll make sure I have stuff like that with me if I know it's going to be a problem. But otherwise, no. There's a lot of mental preparation that goes into it, but not as much vocal preparation.
Okay. Okay.
And I'm happy to speak about the mental preparation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because I like saying this to people. I especially like saying this to younger people, because I often get asked, do you ever get nervous? And I say yes, every single time. But once I crack that mic open, it's gone. For me, almost once I step onto the stage and I can see the people, it's gone. But a little bit of nerves is okay. It's something I'm trying to teach my daughter. Nerves are good as long as you're in control of them. It means you care. And I tell a lot of the young guys that ask me that question, I'm like, when you stop being nervous, you should probably stop doing this, because you probably don't care anymore.
Yeah.
So I do definitely have a lot of self-talk that I do beforehand, certainly going over the card, making sure that I have that in my head. Funny story, and if I do too much riffing for you guys, definitely feel free to stop me. But
no, go ahead.
I definitely talk a lot. I was at a show. It was one of those baseball shows that Scarpone and Blitz was running, and there was a guy who was just starting to do ring announcing, and he was doing it from a legal pad. He was actually using the legal pad, and I was like, just try to get away from that if you can. And he's like, well, you mean don't look at anything? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you mean memorize the entire show? I'm like, no, memorize the next match.
Yeah.
That's all,
Right.
That's all you have to do. Like, and I would do that. In the beginning, I did commentary and ring announcing at the same time. So like for the first maybe 5 or 6 years that I did this, I was doing double duty. And so I would have the mic on the table in front of me, and I'm watching the match, and I'm also looking down at my notes and memorizing the next match at the same time, and then running up there, giving my introduction and running back to the table. But yeah, it was always just about, you just have to know the next match. You don't have to know the whole card.
Right.
Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah.
What came first?
Pardon me?
What came first, commentating or ring announcing?
Ring announcing by one show. So the story is Ben Jordan posted on the IWA Mid-South board that Elite Pro was looking for a new ring announcer, that they needed a ring announcer for the next show. And I had zero experience, and I hit up Ben Jordan. I'm like, look, I have no experience doing it, but I've been in radio for a long time. I've done commercials. I've worked in front of crowds on stage for concerts and club gigs and stuff like that. So I'm used to being in front of people, and I'm also a lifelong wrestling fan. So I said, put the two together and I'm your guy. And he's like, all right, come work the show for free. And, if we like you, we might keep you around, they big time me. And so I showed up, I did my first match. I came back through the curtain, and they're like, yeah, you're hired. You're a regular guy from now on. They paid me that night. Next show, I show up, and they're like, you're doing commentary tonight too. Like, it wasn't even a question. Like, you're doing commentary tonight too. I'm like, okay. Again, no experience in that either. And I just kept doing that. Like I said, for probably a good 5 or 6 years. Well, even just maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when Underground was becoming Freelance Underground, and they wanted to use Sterling and Jimmy D. They wanted me there as the third person. And so I did the first couple shows, those first couple Beta Brow shows, as a 3-person team. And then I went to James, and I was like, I'm done, but not in a bad way. I'm like, they're fine. They've got this. So I'm going to phase myself out. And I think that was probably the last commentary I did. So now I've just focused, solely on the ring announcing aspect, because there's other guys that can do the commentary. So why take another spot, right? Yeah. Let's open it up for someone else. Especially Sterling's a lifelong friend of mine. I've known Sterling for 17 years, so when he was like in 6th grade. So to bring him into the business and to give him essentially my spot felt very special to me. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, you just asked. It doesn't hurt to ask, and you shot your shot, even though honestly, But yeah, look what it turned out to be. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, are you I'm assuming you're warmed up now and you're ready for the main course. Is that
Right
correct?
on, man. Bring on the red meat.
Great.
All right, well, I gotta ask. I think this is probably a salady question, like this transitional question here. But at what point did the matching tie and shoe combo
Yeah.
begin? Like, cause that is like the Kirby staple. Like those shoes are so unique. I don't know how many pairs you have in your closet. They match every tie you have. It's a cool visual, and especially now that we take it to the kind of like the modern age with IWTV. Like you're the first one on freelance TV that people see.
Right.
You're dead center, and you know you're not matching necessarily freelance, but you're matching and you stand out.
Right. And again, it's about standing out, but standing out for a reason, right? It's about adding that extra,
Hmm.
oomph and pizzazz to the company. And I have to give credit where credit is due. The matching aspect came from my wife. She just started buying me, like she knew I was doing this. She's like, oh, I found these cool pair of shoes, and I found this shirt and this tie that would go awesome with these shoes. And I just ran with it. Wrestling made me a stylish person because of my wife. I was not a stylish person before that. I was definitely a sweatpants and t-shirt kind of guy. And now, for 12 or 13 years, I've really grown to enjoy dressing this way. And as a teacher, I often do it as well because I want students to see something very professional as well. So yeah, it was kind of her idea, and she kept feeding it. Like, I would, just once a week or once a month, she's like, got you another fresh pair of shoes, got you another outfit, and just wanted, and I was eating it up, man.
Yeah.
Because so were the people, it became the thing, like, what's he gonna wear today, and the nice thing about the fact that I do have a lot, I have probably 30 pair of shoes, but I don't always wear, I'll cycle through them, but I try to keep them like, if I can keep them like 3 or 4 shows apart, no one's going to remember. And it's so many times people are like, whoa, those shoes are amazing. I'm like, yeah, you've seen them 8 times. I've just made sure you've never seen them, for more than, 4 months, at least 4 months apart. So like, if I space it out enough, everything looks new, man, because they're always expecting the new hotness. And then the coolest thing, you were talking earlier, and this might have been right before we started even, so I apologize, but you were talking about the fact that I coordinate. It's kind of what we're on now, right? The fact that I coordinate my tie and my shirt and my socks, my shoes and socks at times. When I saw someone on Twitter, just some random post on Twitter, right when the pandemic started, that someone had turned their pocket squares into masks. And so I ran with that idea. So I came home to my wife, because my wife and my mother-in-law at the beginning of the pandemic made like thousands of masks, and were like donating them to hospitals and wherever they needed to go, because we didn't have PPE in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And so they were doing this. And so I knew they knew how to make masks. I'm like, hey, I saw this thing. If I buy ties and pocket squares, you can turn the pocket square into the mask. And then that's one more thing that matches. And my wife's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, and then when the first time someone saw me like that, they're like, oh my God, of course. I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I? One more thing that I can match? I'm like, absolutely. So yeah, the style was born from wrestling. I didn't bring the style to wrestling, but it was born because I wanted to represent myself and the business and the companies I worked for in a professional way, but I wanted to spice it up a little bit. So that's why I said earlier that I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of a blend of the old school and the new school. Because the old school would be a tuxedo, right? The old school would be, a white shirt. It wouldn't, it wouldn't have anything flamboyant to it. And so, whereas I'm not trying to be crazy with it, but I think that pop of color just really brings something and makes it, a little more interesting.
Yeah, accessorize.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you do a fantastic job
Coming
of it.
soon, Kirby the brand.
Yes.
I've often thought about, how people like, how the wrestlers always want to get sponsors. Like, I want to get like some young guy who's just trying to break into fashion and like be his like model or whatever, and have someone start making suits for me, like,
Mhm.
and like, and sponsor like some young fashion guy. So if anyone out there is listening, and you're really into fashion, and you're a tailor, and you want a really large canvas to work on, I'm your guy. I'm your guy.
Awesome.
That's
At
great.
Kirby the Voice.
Yes. Yes. So walk down that runway for you. Kirby, the last time we saw you, getting into the main course, the last time we saw you in person was at the Collective. That was actually, now looking back at, because we've taken a little bit of an episode break as well to get some other things right in our life. And that was our last episode that was released, was
Okay.
the recap of that. So like just in general, how was your Collective experience, and what are some memories and takeaways that like things that stuck out that you have from that weekend?
Certainly, it was a great experience. Now, we all know that it was marred in controversy to an extent, right? That there was a lot of people that didn't want the show to happen,
Right.
mainly because of the pandemic, and felt that it was very irresponsible of Brett from GCW to run a show like that. And I posted a pretty long tweet about a week or so after the show, after I came home, got my test, and tested negative. And, I felt you could do it right. And I felt Brett did do it right. Now, were there a couple cases that came out of it? Certainly.
Mhm.
But if you did the contact tracing, it didn't come from the wrestling, right? It happened at the wrestling, but it didn't come from that. Most of them said they knew where it came from. It came from someone at home, or this, that, and the other. And so it wasn't a super spreader event like, some people were trying to get you to believe that it would be. So I went into it with a little trepidation, because it was the first big thing that I was going to be doing that was going to be indoors.
Yeah.
Right.
I went to some of the outdoor shows that he did in Indianapolis, and I worked the Warrior shows, here in the Heights, because those were all outdoor shows. But it was the first show, and I agreed to it, not even realizing it was going to be an indoor show. James was like, "Hey, are you willing to do the Collective show?" And I'm like, "Of course," because it was going to be in Indianapolis. It was Brett running it, and I just had it as outside, even though it was October, right? October? I don't even remember anymore.
Yeah, it was.
September,
It was middle
October.
of October.
Even though I should have known that it was the beginning of the winter months, I, for some reason, thought it was outside. And then when I realized it was inside, I was like, "Oh, what did I get myself into?" But I went into it with some faith that Brett was going to take the precautions that he should. And I felt, for the most part, that is what happened. I mean, everyone was wearing a mask, especially the fans. The fans were amazing. I mean, you guys probably heard my speeches before each show, where I would remind everybody to social distance, to put 6 feet of feet away from you in the next group if you're on the bleachers, to not move your chairs, leave your chairs where we put them, because we're trying to make sure that you're socially distant. And everyone was doing it. No one was complaining. There was no bitching and moaning. They were doing it. And there was a lot of bodies there, but the locker room per se was almost like a warehouse. So it was huge. So you could be even though there was a ton of bodies there, they were so spread out. Gorilla position, everyone in gorilla position had their masks on at all times. So they did it the right way. So I know maybe you were looking for more of a wrestling related answer, but I guess one of my biggest takeaways is that we successfully did something, and did try to really do right by it, and right by the fans, and right by the workers, and I think pulled that off for the most part. My biggest takeaways, and I think I hope this is the way a lot of people saw these shows: For the Culture and Big Gay Brunch. For the Culture blew me away. to see, it's a buzzword now, right? Representation matters. I see it on Netflix now. I think it's almost like a brand on Netflix. They put it on any show that has a Black person in it. They say representation matters, and so it's almost a cliche thing now, but it does. And so for these guys to get a chance to show what they can do on somewhat of a grand stage, and to know what it meant to them, and to see that passion oozing out of them in blood, sweat, and tears was moving. Now, I'm an ally, and I almost hate that term anymore, because I think so many people use it. I'm an ally. I have Black friends, I have gay friends. da, 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 da.
Yeah.
I have a Black son. I have an adopted Black son. So and a half Black granddaughter that I raise here in my home. It meant something to me. I teach in a neighborhood where 99% of my students are people of color. It meant something to me to see this representation, to know that was there for them. So For the Culture was my favorite show of the entire weekend. And I loved everything that was done about that. And just so many good matches. I mean, Lee Moriarty had an incredible weekend. I think 5, maybe 6 pretty solid matches, solid to phenomenal matches. And there was so many guys that shined. And then you have these great stories like Juicy Finale, right? That comes out of the collective, like, who in the hell is Juicy Finale? And this kid just showed up, right? He's like, I'm gonna take that shot, like kind of like I did, right? I'm gonna shoot my shot,
right?
And the people ate it up, and now Brett's using him on shows. So that was another great story that came out of it, and just to see that much wrestling, and to have it all have it happening under one roof, and to see the fans for the most part hot throughout. It gets hard after 8, 9, 10 hours of wrestling. It does, even for me, and I'm into it. But the crowd stayed hot pretty much into the morning hours. And that's my biggest takeaway, is that For the Culture was amazing. Big Gay Brunch was amazing. Seeing these two guys, AJ and Effie, bring these things to life from their inception. They put the idea out there, and a lot of people embraced it. Some people still tried to shoot it down, but they ran with it. They stuck with their heart, and they put on these amazing shows. And I said that as an umbrella, Brett put on an amazing show. And it was a great weekend, man. It was great to see you guys, and that's all. That, like I said, that camaraderie is huge for me, right? So to see you guys and other fans, and hang out with my friends that I've made through this business, that's what made the collective special for me. And I think that's what makes wrestling special. And I'm gonna divert a little bit again, but wrestling for me is special because so many people that are into wrestling don't have another place where they feel at home. They don't have another place where they feel comfortable or even possibly special. Sure. And so I have people that come up to me all the time, thanking me for wrestling, and you know that this is the only place they feel good. And that's great. That's part of the magic. That's what makes wrestling special, is that we can make people feel special and feel at home and welcome. And I think that's something we shouldn't take lightly.
Yeah. No, it was very well said. I think that, we've heard great things about For the Culture. We didn't actually see the show, but I think Chris and I voted Effie's Big Gay Brunch is our favorite show of the weekend, because we saw basically all of Saturday and then Black Label Pro on Sunday. And so, I think we'd echo a lot of the same sentiment of what you just said.
Right on.
Great. Good, Chris. Did you want to? Did you?
No, I just wanted to touch on that. Like, I really, hearing you talk about it, and I heard Val talk about, Effie's Big Gay Brunch. all these shows that, to you talk to anybody like, oh, I went to a wrestling show. I went to a wrestling show. Um, and like, yeah, that's cool. It's fun. But, as you mentioned, like, it could be a buzzword or whatever, but representation does matter.
Yeah.
And it matters how you portray it. And I think that the fact that this is happening in this time, well, there's a pandemic and there's so many restrictions. At the end of the day, they pulled it off, and the fact that that video still lives out there to, for anybody to go check it out. I mean, I think, I just think that it is extremely important that happened, that people enjoyed it for what it was,
Yeah.
but also take the time to acknowledge the show for what it was.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of emphasize on that.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. Um, Now, during the collective, and I'm gonna run down a couple of promotions that I wrote down that I think you participated in or you've been a part of. And you tell me if I'm missing any. But the follow up question to that would be, what wrestler have you been the most excited to announce? Here I have from the ones that I know, the promotions that I know that you've worked with is Freelance Underground, Warrior Wrestling, GCW, Gali, Black Label Pro, AAW, VWAA, Dreamwave, Elite Pro, IWE Mid South, and am I missing any here in that list?
I want to. Oh, did you say Blitz?
I did not.
I did one. I did one Blitz show.
Okay.
I did one Blitz show for Tony. Yeah, no, I think that's a pretty precise list. I think there was some one-off show that I did in Indianapolis for Punk Pro Wrestling from Florida that came up and did one show in Indianapolis. I did that, but yeah, that's pretty much the laundry list right there. And I've been afforded. You said Warrior too, right?
Yeah,
I assume you got
Warriors in there.
Yeah. I've been afforded some incredible luxuries as far as working with people that I've admired for a very, very, very long time, and then people that are just favorites of mine currently. And so there's so many special ones, but one of the biggest for me happened by accident, and that was getting to introduce Cody. I showed up. Pro Wrestling Blitz was doing a baseball show, and I forget the name of the team. They did them for a couple years, and Zello did them too. Zello took over.
Thunderbolts.
Yes. So they were doing these Thunderbolt shows, and I took my daughter, and I took her because Cody was on the show, and she didn't know anything about Cody yet at this point. And my favorite wrestler of all time is the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. So I can't introduce my daughter to Dusty. I wanted to introduce her to his son. And so we went to the show, met Cody before the show, and he was amazing. We talked to him for a long time. We were just getting ready to go to Japan for Dominion that year. And so we talked about that with him, and he was not trying to get through the line at any type of speed or anything, and took pictures with us and was just a super cool guy. And that's what we were there for. We were there to enjoy that and watch some baseball. And I went up to Tony, and was Tony Scarpone who ran Blitz. And he was like, "Oh man," he goes, "I should have called you." I'm like, "Why? What's up?" He goes, "I don't have a ring announcer for tonight." And I'm like, and right away in my head, I'm like, Cody's on the show. So, I try to keep my cool. I'm like, oh, I could do it if you want me to. I mean, I'm here with my daughter, and I'm here to watch the game and such. But I try to like play it cool, right? Like, yeah, I could do it, I guess, if you really need me to. I'm like, but I'm not dressed for it, and that's something that's meaningful to me. Because we talked about that. I'm like, I'm not dressed for it, and he's like, "No, I don't care. I don't care." And so it's really funny because I was wearing, and this is probably going to get some heat now, but at the time I didn't know how bad he was. I was wearing a David Starr baseball cap and a Progress Wrestling T-shirt, and announcing Cody in a Pro Wrestling Blitz ring at a baseball stadium. like
so
what?
random,
Yeah, and but it was cool because I told Tony, I'm like, hey, I've got my daughter with me, and so she's probably about 5 at the time, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to have her inside the barriers with me. I'm gonna have her near me, right next to the ring. And it's like, oh, that's fine. I'm like, okay, cool. So long as you don't mind that, I'm good. So she's sitting next to me, and Cody, after Cody's match is over, people are reaching over the barricade, and they're too sweeting him, right? They had, they hadn't got the cease and desist yet, so they're too sweeting Cody, and my daughter's just kind of watching it happen because it's happening almost over her head, and some young lady in the audience like showed my daughter how to make it, and like, do this. So my daughter goes up and too sweets Cody, and he reaches down, grabs her, pulls her up, puts her on her shoulder, and marches her around the ring, sets her down, and walks off into the sunset. Like, amazing. And then when we leave the show, she goes, Daddy, I don't know that I'm gonna have another special moment like that ever again in my life. And so, and I say this, a lot. That's the magic of professional wrestling, right? That's what it's supposed to do, especially with the youth. When it works, man, does it work, right? It takes you to a whole nother place. It creates these memories. That's why we're sitting here. That's why 3 guys are talking about wrestling. That's why you guys do a show however often you do, because it's created something in you, right? It stirs something in you, a passion and these memories. And so to have that memory created for my daughter by the son of my favorite professional wrestler of all time, and now Cody's gone on to be now her favorite professional wrestler, I couldn't ask for anything more than that. So yes, I've worked with a lot of people from all aspects of my fandom. Just amazing amount. I could give you a laundry list, 40, 50, 60 people.
Right.
I work with, Minoru Suzuki. I've worked with, I've introduced Muda, Jushin Thunder Liger. I mean, it's the list goes on and on and on and on. But to have this more personal moment by introducing Cody and introducing my daughter to Cody Rhodes, that tops everything. That blows everything else away.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a fantastic story, an ironic story, but sometimes fate allows that to happen. Man. I wanna ask you. I don't know if and also I don't know if it could top that story. If anything else could top that story, but I want to ask you: is there a wrestler you'd like to announce in the future that you haven't? And if so, if you could be alive or dead. It could be Dusty, if that's your answer. And if so, like, how would you do it? Or would you add in any of their monikers or anything like that? I'm not going to ask you to shout right now in your home.
Right.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of meeting Dusty. So I at least got to meet Dusty. I never got to work with him, but I did get to meet him at an IWA Mid-South show back in the Highland days at one of their anniversary shows. So I at least had that experience. I would love to introduce Dusty. And for more so than introducing Dusty would be being in the ring with him and just seeing how he would riff. Like what would he do? How would he interact with me? Just because his personality was so much larger than life, and just to have him like interact with me in a ring would be phenomenal. So it wouldn't be so much about what I would do. It would be like, how would he craft that experience? And I almost feel like he would. Like, I feel like he would have crafted that experience if I were to have that, on the indie scene with him now, if he were still around in a wrestling shape. Terry Funk, and I
You're
wonder,
gonna bring him out of retirement?
I don't think he has another one in him. I don't, because I do believe he's having some health issues right now. If memory serves, I think he, is struggling a little bit. So I don't know that would ever happen. But Terry Funk is on my very, very, very short list of people that I still really would love to have the opportunity to work with.
Right.
But that being said, Mick Foley worked
Right.
in Warrior Wrestling
Mhm.
show, and in probably even more of a working capacity than we thought he was going to. But
Yeah.
I could see, why couldn't Terry Funk be involved in something and still not have to work? And so that I definitely get in the ear of Warrior Steve about Terry Funk. So I'm going to definitely, and I'm going to continue to work that angle and see if
Nice.
I can make that happen. But as far as one of ones that certainly could happen, Zack Sabre Jr. I'm a huge mark for Zack Sabre Jr. I've seen him multiple times in the States, but I never worked any of those shows. I just happened to be going to those shows. I'd really like to work with Zack Sabre Jr. There's just something very different about his style. He brings that British hooker style.
Yeah.
That would probably be my modern answer.
I can't wait till you announce what Warrior ran on 9, maybe Warrior 9, right? Undertaker versus Terry Funk in the main event.
Yeah, book it, Steve. Listen to these guys; they know what they're talking about.
They're like, yes, Marion Central has taken out.
It wouldn't do anything for your gate. It wouldn't be any good for the show.
No,
just do it for me.
I was gonna say Marion Central has taken out a loan to put on the show, but we got the Undertaker and we got Terry Funk in. That's great. Yeah, that's really.
I was gonna ask real quick, Kirby. We talked about all the people that you've introduced and several legends, but it has to be complicated to go to Gali and introduce all these luchadors.
Yeah, man. I was at a Gali show. I had started going to Gali shows with my daughter because it was a family-friendly show, and many of the other shows I was working were not. So I wanted this opportunity to take her to shows, and this is when Carlos was just starting to use like Phoenix and Pentagon, and I was at a show, and he knew me through James and them, and he would come to freelance shows whenever we would use any lucha guys. And he comes up to me at the end of a show. He's like, "Hey, I'm trying to make the show more professional, and everyone's telling me that the guy I have to use is you." Because I think they had just finished using Steve Kenton at the time. I think was the guy previous to me. And I go, "Carlos, you realize I don't speak Spanish, right?" And he's like, "Oh yeah. We'll teach. It doesn't matter." I'm like, "Okay." So we talked business, and we made it happen. And I like to I try to learn a little Spanish every show. I do. I try to learn a little bit more. I've tried to at least learn how to say the matches, but it is difficult, especially when they bring, and he does bring so many guys in from Mexico that don't speak English. And, I'll go to Gringo a lot. I'm like, how do I ask them their name? How do I ask them where they're from? And, donde eres, like stuff like that. I pick up little things here and there where I can make it easier. And, the guys are so appreciative to hear me even try to speak to them in their native language. They think that's pretty cool. Or they'll grab somebody else. They'll grab Gringo, or they'll grab one of the kids, the Gali kids who obviously speak both, and we'll get it done. But it is difficult. It's one of those shows that I have to show up earlier for because the prep is hard.
I mean, even if you get there late, you'll still be early.
Well, yeah, true. Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely it's. I've learned, it's like early for one show is not early for Gali. So like I show up late for Gali knowing that I'm still way early. but I do have to put more prep into that show because of the language barrier. And because I want to put some things right into it. And one of my favorite moments, you said, it's got to be difficult. This was a show maybe a year ago, and it was a hair versus hair match. I want to say it was Chico versus, I'm not sure at this point.
Chico versus Chico lost.
Yeah, Chico lost, right?
Hashtag Viva La Chico.
It was a hair versus hair match, and as you're a Spanish speaker, the word for hair and the word for horse, I believe, are very similar.
Okay.
Right.
Cabello is hair. Caballo is horse.
Yeah, so I announced it as a caballo versus caballo match. So I announced it as a horse versus horse.
Tough individuals going at it.
Two horses.
Yeah. So, but you know what? Again, that's the crowd laughed. You know, and it's bloopers like that. Little things like that, and especially the Golly crowd loves to give white people shit, but in a friendly, fun way, right? They like to mess with us, the whole hey puto, and so I embrace that. I figure the only way, I'm not going to get offended by it or anything, and I understand, I guess that we've learned now that is a very offensive word, especially in the LGBTQ plus community, but it's still part of the lucha culture and the soccer culture, from what I understand. So I embraced it, right? So when they hit it with me, I acted like the ignorant, dumb gringo that I was. I'm like, that's me, yo soy puto,
right? Because the whole crowd would embrace Kirby. Like, Kirby gets his own chant.
I acted like it was a compliment.
You leaned into it.
That made them that much more happy, because they're like, oh, they got over on the white guy, and so just because that's what we're doing. It's smoke and mirrors, right? It's theater,
entertainment.
Yeah. So I just play into it, man. I just roll with it, because that's what we have to do. But yeah, I love Golly for that reason. The crowd, I mean, the noisemakers and everything else. I had the opportunity when I was 40, so 9 years ago, to go to Mexico and see a couple shows in Mexico City, and I love it, man. Just again, we talk about passion, because that's what's so much about what wrestling is about. But the noisemakers and just the way they get into it is insane. And to have a pocket of that here in the Chicagoland area is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, definitely. Kirby, not to get sentimental, but what's one thing you miss about freelance wrestling right now? Just if you had to say one thing.
All of it. The crowd. It's you guys. It really is. I've worked with some of my friends throughout the summer doing those outdoor shows at Warrior, but there's just something about that freelance crowd that's really, really, really special. There's a few other crowds like it, that just have that atmosphere that they've created, and it goes back to the Abbey. And it's cliche to say, fans would come up to me and say, oh, great show tonight, great show. And I would often respond, I'm like, well, it's about you guys. And I know that sounds like I'm glad-handing. I'm like, well, so much of it is about you. In Freelance's case, I don't believe that's cliche. I don't believe that's glad-handing whatsoever, because they really, especially at the Abbey, they made that building so special, and they were so into everything we gave them. And the best example of that, and I think I have told this story a couple times, is the first time we did the Halloween gimmick battle royal, and Nick hands me the run sheet, And I look at it and I see we're doing this gimmick battle royal, and it's all local guys dressing up for all intents and purposes as famous professional wrestlers through time. And I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so fucking stupid. Like, this is like, I didn't want to do the show anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, this is going to bury us. We're just a few months in with this company. I'm like, wow, this is the worst idea ever. This is going to bomb so badly. And I'm the face of it, right? I'm the guy saying it. Like, it's like, no one's looking at Nick do something stupid with this. They're looking at me, and I've got to do this stupid thing. And so I did it. And as soon as the first person came through the curtain, and it might have been like Marche is the Rock or whoever, the crowd acted like they were seeing each and every one of those people.
Right.
They chanted rock, and for Austin, and for Angle, and for Steamboat, and for, like, they acted like they were seeing these real live people. And looking through the crowd, I mean, they were losing their shit. Like, they were just like, oh my God, it's Steamboat. like, I don't know if they were just overtook by the moment, or if they were working us as much as we're working them. I don't know. But it was magical, and it ended up being one of the coolest things Freelance has ever done. And we've done a few more of them since, and all of them have been cool, but we've never captured what was that first one. That was like lightning in a bottle, man. So for me, it really is about the fans. The fans have made people. The first time Space Monkey came into the Abbey, like, no one knew who Space Monkey was, like, at all. Had no reason to know anything about him. He hadn't done anything yet. And the Abbey crowd just went oh my goodness.
Bananas.
Oh shit.
They went eight.
It went shit, look at that.
No, the crowd went nuts for him. And again, the crowd makes so much of what works in Freelance work. You know, the way they, we had DeCobra on one show, and I forget, he kind of just said something, and it was just something stupid, and the crowd just kept chanting it back at him, and then they kept chanting it all night long, and like, it's just the stuff like that, like that crowd is, and especially there's a certain crew of that crowd, especially, but yeah, the people, man, it's the fans that really that I miss the most. I miss that atmosphere. Yeah,
they're very open-minded and just like go with the flow and just there to have a good time, I think. And
yeah, they're not sitting on their hands. I mean, I was going, and I'm not even going to say the company because I'm not here to bash anybody.
Sure.
But I was going to another very big company in Chicago shows that was putting on very, very good shows with amazing talent from all over the place. And people were sitting on their hands. Like, what are you doing? You're seeing Zack Sabre Jr. and all these amazing guys, and they're just kind of like, oh, all right. Like, no, that's like Freelance just isn't like that. Freelance is a whole different animal. They're into it. They're there to have a good time. They're there to be transported away from the fact that they don't have a job, or things are going wrong at home right now, or they can't find a girl, or they're worried about making ends meet or whatever. All that goes away at a wrestling show. None of that matters anymore. You're in this magical, larger than life place. And the Freelance crowd personifies that more than any crowd that I've ever been a part of.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. And in transitioning into the dessert, so I hope you're ready for that. So we've had a lot of great stories so far, and we'll continue to have them as we get through this dessert line. Wrestling, right? We're a wrestling podcast, Two Is in a Face Wrestling Podcast. Have you been watching anything recently?
I watch AEW on the regular. I'm a couple weeks behind. so when AEW and NXT started to go head to head,
Mhm.
so at the birth of AEW on television, at least, I asked my daughter, I'm like, which one do you want to watch with me? Because we're not going to be able to watch all of it. There's so much wrestling, right? And so we're not going to be able to watch all of it. So which one do you prefer and want to watch? And even though she's this huge Cody mark, we watched a few episodes of each, and for some reason she fell more in love with NXT. So we were watching more NXT, and then I was watching AEW on my own. And I enjoyed both products because both products are similar, where it's the young, hungry guys that are giving more of a chance to shine, and it's more about work rate and less about muscle bound guys giving promos or whatever. So both shows were very entertaining to me, but and also have a lot of friends that I've made right throughout the years on both of those shows, people that I've worked with. So it's great seeing the guys that I know and love. But no, for whatever reason, Darby kind of falls in and out of wanting to watch wrestling. We have so much that we want to do together, and she's so involved in things.
Right.
So there's only so many hours in a day. So when she started watching less, I started gravitating more towards just watching AEW. So that's pretty much all I watch right now. I watch some tape and stuff of indie matches and stuff like that, and shows that I work on. But for the most part, most of my time is, if I'm watching wrestling, I'm watching AEW.
Yeah, and that's going to be leads into the next question is, your daughter's probably continually fairly interested in wrestling, right? And would you say she's a fan, like a pretty not habitual, but like a fan of wrestling?
Absolutely. She asked 2 years ago now, I think it was 2 years ago, for her birthday party, if I would put on a wrestling show in her front yard for her birthday, and I did.
I remember that. Yeah.
I rented a ring from Merle, and got some friends, including Isaiah's, whose birthday it is today. I guess it won't be when this airs, but
happy
as
birthday.
we're sitting here speaking, happy birthday to Isaiah Velasquez.
Right.
And Kylie, because Kylie was my daughter's favorite local wrestler or indie wrestler that she saw somewhat regular. So the two of them came out and did a little spot with her, and a few other guys, some guys from Gali, and
that's awesome.
Some other friends of mine came and worked that. So she asked for that because she was into it at the time, and right now, and she's still into it, but she's into so many things, and especially like right now she takes, well, that all changed this week.
And how old is she?
She's 9.
Okay.
She just turned 9 on Halloween, and she's 9 going on 50. She's she's advanced for her age as far as her academics, as far as her social skills. She's just very advanced for her age.
Cool.
And she has so many interests. And my whole idea of bringing someone up is expose them to everything and let them find what they like, right? It's not about what I want them to do, but it's about showing them everything and letting them pick and choose. And as a parent, you assume that they're only going to be good at so many things and only have interest in so many things. No, she loves everything she does, and she does all of them very, very, very well. So we let her do a lot of stuff. So right now she's in ice skating, drums, taekwondo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Holy shit.
Acting and modeling, and I think is going to start taking singing lessons as well. So and she's teaching herself to skateboard and do BMX tricks. So
you got the.
How do you have the time to drive her all those places? I don't know.
My wife and I, that's what we're about,
Yeah.
You sacrifice for your children,
Right.
And I don't even see it. I don't see it as a sacrifice. That's, that's something you say, but it's not, you don't feel that way. no, I love seeing her enjoy herself. So if sitting down and watching wrestling with me is what brings her happiness, great. If it's not, because she's got so many other things, so many other irons in the fire, that's fine too. She's going to come back to the wrestling, because I'm always going to be a part of it, and it's a part of her. So she's going to come in and out of it. So she's a fan. She just doesn't always have time for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'll always be there. It's perpetual. It's eternal. That's a huge positive for wrestling.
Yeah.
Cool. What are your other hobbies, Kirby? What else do you like to do?
Yeah, man. I'm a big comic book nerd. Okay. Have been all my life. I think I discovered comics in like 5th or 6th grade. So something like 1984. Okay. So quite some time ago. So a big comic book nerd, sci-fi, horror. So I'm into, watching movies and such. Again, only so many hours in the day. So it's hard to, indulge in all that. I'm also a very big board game guy. I love playing board and card games, especially like a lot of the stuff that's coming out of Europe, so like they call Euro games. I work at different conventions in the summer. I work some of the big gaming conventions. I demo for a lot of the big companies out there, because it's just another way for me to be out there with the people, right? I like being around people, so that's just that's a hobby in and of itself for me, is being around people. I play disc golf. Are you guys familiar with disc golf?
Yes, I am.
I am not.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, my dad disc golfs.
Yeah, so I play disc golf. Out there throwing frisbees at a basket.
Yeah.
I have nothing to do with real golf or what we like to call ball golf. I don't have anything to do with that ball golf.
Yeah.
But no, I play disc golf in the summer. A lot of the nerdy stuff, man. Like I said, the comics, the movies, sci-fi, technology a little bit. I'd like to get more into technology. There was a time when I was probably a lot more into it, but it's so hard to keep up with, right? You have to rebuild your computer every couple of years, because now you don't have enough RAM or enough memory or so it's hard to keep up with it, especially from a monetary aspect. And gaming systems, you have to buy a new gaming system every 2 to 3 years, because you have to have the new model, and your phone, you have to have the new phone. I play a lot of mobile games, probably a lot more than I should. Okay. That's a hobby that I'd like to maybe break myself up, but boy, do I play a lot of mobile games.
Can you recommend one?
Marvel, not Contest of Champions. Marvel Strike Force is the one that I probably spend the most time on. Again, it bleeds into that comic book hobby as well. So I like to engage in the nerddom. I used to go to comic book conventions. I've been to San Diego Comic-Con one time in 1996. So I made it to Mecca as far as that's concerned. I collect. I don't collect comics anymore, but I still collect original art. I still go to conventions and get original art.
Nice.
When I went to San Diego, it's not a wrestling story, but you asked a non-wrestling question. So I don't think I've ever talked this answer before on a wrestling podcast.
Sure.
When I went to San Diego Comic-Con in '96, Image was just blowing up, and that was the mass exodus from Marvel of all of their like big talents like Todd McFarlane and Jim Lee and Eric Larson. They all went and formed their own company, and so it was a really big deal. And they had Jim Lee, who did Wildcats for Image, and he was on stage, on stage, doing this really large drawing, and he drew in characters from Wildcats and characters from X-Men, and it's the first piece of art that exists with both characters, for characters from both properties in one piece. And so the audience is bidding on this piece while it's being drawn by Jim Lee.
Oh, shit.
So I'm bidding on it, and it's quickly going up, 200, 300, 400, 500. And then all of a sudden it comes down to two people. It's myself and Jamie Graham. And for Chicago people, Jamie Graham owns Graham Crackers Comics, which is a big chain for comic book stores throughout Chicagoland.
Okay.
So Jamie and I are just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally I won the piece for $1,000. A lot of money to put out for a piece of paper and some graphite and ink, right?
Right.
So I've had that piece now since '96. About 5 years ago or so, our roof was falling apart. And so I thought, like, let me entertain the idea and see if there's value in any of my pieces. And I owned a lot of other pieces too, a Bernie Wrightson piece and such. So I got a dealer to come out to my house and inspect my collection. And he was interested in the Jim Lee piece. And I ended up selling it for $6,000 and putting a new roof on my house.
That's awesome.
And my wife felt so bad. She's like, oh, you had to give up this piece that you love. I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like, that's the dream. That's why people collect. They collect because they want their stuff. But the dream is one day they're going to sell all this stuff and make lots and lots of money, right? And I got to do that, at least, for one thing. But putting a roof on your house, that's a big deal, especially if your roof is starting to fall apart. So the fact that I was able to do that with something I had bought, I'm like, and it hung on my wall forever. And I still have a lot of other art pieces. So it wasn't like I lost anything. I was thrilled to death to have pulled that off, to have made 6 times my money on something on big money like that. So yeah, that was a win. So yeah, that's my big comic book story.
That's great. I love that. Any Mandalorian?
Yes, I just watched the first episode of season 2 right before getting on with you guys.
Okay.
So my wife and I watched Mandalorian as it aired last season, and for some reason we kind of thought it might be a little too much for Darby, and then as we started to watch this season, we kind of tried to recall last season, like, well, what was there? Was there really anything that was that bad? And like I said, she's kind of mature for her age. So we're like, so we stopped watching in the middle of the first episode. We stopped watching, and I said, I'm going to go back and rewatch it with Darby. So we spent the past just 3 or 4 days actually watching the entire first season, got her all caught up. And then as a family sat down and watched the first episode of the second season tonight. So we're 3 episodes behind, right? Because we're on episode 4. Mm-hmm. But it's phenomenal. It's so amazing to take the Star Trek universe that I grew up with, because I remember standing in line to see the first Star Wars at River Oaks Theater in Calumet, Illinois. To take this and do this spin on it and make it a Western, because I don't know if everyone realizes that or not, but it's a Western. Like, all the tropes, all the storylines are Western, especially the first episode of the second season, where he's riding into town on a mechanical horse, and all the people are looking at him. I'm like,
and the sheriff,
that's a
town
Western sheriff. Yeah, I like that. All these tropes are from mainly spaghetti Westerns. And so, yeah, I'm over the moon about it. I love it. I think it's a fantastically well-written show. It's really, really good.
Yeah, they have a ton of tie-ins to there's some really good YouTube videos where you can like look at some guy will break down the Easter eggs and all the callbacks, and you see how much they're actually tying in the story of all the other ones and references. And I think that's Star Wars' strength. It's how they tie everything together and they world build and things like that. So it's really cool.
And it plays into our wrestling world now. Sasha makes an appearance in this. In this season, right?
She does. Yeah, she does. She it was a good experience. It's a little bit more minor than I think some people would have hoped, but I think it still is cool for her and really cool to see her. So you're in for a treat for sure. There's in these next 3 episodes. So
that's what I've been hearing. I try to stay away from the spoilers, and most people that I follow are pretty respectable about the spoilers. Like, they'll talk, they'll vague book about it. and just talk about how cool the episode was, and without really going into detail. So I definitely, I'm excited for especially episode 3 and 4. That's what I feel like a lot of people were talking about the most, is how good 3 and 4 were.
Yeah.
So I can't wait over the next couple of days to get into that. So
cool. And really quickly,
right? Because we're getting into the holidays, so the holidays is cool. So
it's a good. This is a great transition. I don't know if Chris, you can ask this question.
Yeah, I was like, I can't contribute a whole lot to the Mandalorian conversation, but
are you a Trekkie?
I am neither. I am neither.
You're a Whovian, right? Is that no?
I am a Lucha Libre fan.
No.
But I do want to talk about, it is the holidays are coming up. Thanksgiving's coming up in a couple of days. What is the ideal Thanksgiving meal?
Macaroni and cheese.
Mac and cheese?
Really? Or is that you being facetious?
No. Whoa. Are you kidding me? No, absolutely. There's
a lot of controversy. There's a lot of controversy about mac and cheese, like it's its own separate food, so it shouldn't be at the Thanksgiving table. But like, I'm fine with it. I'm just saying,
That's because you're not having Thanksgiving with Black people. You're doing it wrong.
That's fair. That's fair.
You're talking to the wrong people. That's the problem. Yeah. Well, mac and cheese is supposed to be at every holiday meal. And I learned that from my extended black family and friends,
right,
and network. No, man, I'm all about the mac and cheese, and the mac and cheese is my contribution to every holiday meal. It's what I make.
Okay.
So I hand grate anywhere between 6 and a dozen different cheeses. So every time I make it, it's different. I don't use a recipe whatsoever. I build it up from a roux. So I start with butter and flour, and I make a roux, and then I add my milk and condensed milk and butter and cheese to the roux and build it up from there. And then I bake it and put
I don't even know what a roux is. I don't even know what that is. I don't even know how to spell it.
So roux, I believe it's spelled R-O-U-X. I could be wrong about that, but it's a French style of cooking, and it's building a base. So it's a lot of gravies are made from roux. I believe like roux is often used with like jambalaya and such. So it's building something up from a base. So you start with your butter, and you melt your butter, and then you add flour to the butter until it's no longer any butter. So the flour soaks up all the butter, and then you add liquid to this mixture that you just unliquefied. Now you liquefy it, and that's a roux. And then you can add things to it. So you can add beef stock and stuff like that to it to make it a beef gravy, or you could add cheese like I do to turn it into a right. It's amazing, and it's everyone who has it, it's their favorite thing of mine to have. I've impressed many a holiday table with the macaroni and cheese. I come from a family, my wife's family, and this year is not going to be the case, but my wife's family is a very large family, and one of her aunts and uncles owns DeCola's Seafood on the south side on Western. A lot of listeners will probably be familiar with it. It's been around forever. So they actually bring a lot of seafood to to every holiday meal. So we'll be having like shrimp de Dijon at Thanksgiving. Now we won't this year because we're not going to be meeting as that big of a family, because we're going to do the responsible thing, right? Mm-hmm. But because she has a huge family, we usually have like 40 or 50 people at the holiday meals. So I'm used to having a lot of what I guess would be called non-traditional plates, but I like turkey. I'm also a big ham guy. We had planned on having 2 Thanksgivings, kind of a regular Thanksgiving, and then a Thanksgiving for some people that are in our life that aren't family, but are kind of unfortunate and don't have family. So we were going to have 2 Thanksgivings. So one was going to be turkey and one was going to be ham. And we bought all of it before the world decided to shut down again, or at least Chicago. And so we're going to do both. We're making a turkey and a ham on Thursday. So yeah, we're going to do it up. Cauliflower, there'll be a cauliflower with brown butter. That as a side, we do stuffing. We don't do yams. I know yams. People like sweet potatoes. I'm
Yeah.
not a big sweet potato guy, so that
Okay.
won't be there. But no, it's mainly about the mac and cheese for me, man. I'm all about the carbs.
There,
I love pasta, man, in all its glory and all its in
Yeah.
every way it comes,
Right.
from Chinese to Italian. Give me the pasta, baby. I'm all about it.
for sure. Another controversy is, would you consider gravy a Thanksgiving side dish or no?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it needs to be there. It needs to be made from the juices of the turkey.
Okay.
So yeah, you again that's how you would make a roux. But yeah, absolutely, because
Okay.
it's I put it on my turkey, I put it on my stuffing, and I put it on my mashed potatoes. It pretty much it gets poured on the entire plate.
Yeah.
And then the plate starts like just get mushed together, like, and you gotta put everything on the fork. So you gotta stick the fork in the mashed potatoes, in the stuffing, in the turkey.
Hit all the stops.
Yeah, and it's one mouthful, right? Because it's all, you only have one stomach. It's all going to the same place anyways.
Right.
So yeah, no, gravy, absolutely. Are there people that are anti-gravy?
Well, no. So
Eric Stevens is anti-mashed potatoes and gravy. Isn't that right?
No, and I'm not quoting him. No. The thing is that I follow the Barstool Chicago guys, and they do this thing on their podcast where they have a snake draft, and they were drafting Thanksgiving like food, and one of the categories was sides. And one guy drafted gravy, and then there was a whole uproar, and it got vetoed because they considered gravy a sauce and not a side dish. And then there's this whole like all these different points and counterpoints about like, does gravy classify as an actual sauce, like sauce dressing, or is it considered like a side dish? That would be like a macaroni is a side dish.
Right. As you pose the question like that,
Yeah.
I guess I would say I would not classify it as a side dish. Is it
Same,
a Thanksgiving staple? Does it have to be there?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's
Sure.
a sauce. But I'll take gravy straight to the head. Like
This is what the guy was saying who was voting for it being a side dish. He's like, I would drink it by itself.
Yeah.
I'm down with shots of gravy. Why not?
I drink gravy. I also drink au jus. Like if I have an Italian, French, whatever they call it, Italian beef, but the other
dip,
term,
yeah.
French dip. Yeah, I'll take my leftover au jus. I'll just take it right to the head, man.
Okay, straight to the dome. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, look at me. I mean, I guess people can't see me on the podcast, but look at me. If you know who I am, I've eaten some carbs and some fats.
Yeah.
Stay to the topic of food and gravy and all these great meals. And we're on the dessert bar right now. So what is your favorite dessert? Not necessarily Thanksgiving dessert, maybe a Thanksgiving dessert, but what is your favorite dessert?
I'm a big tiramisu fan. I love tiramisu. I also love flan. And creme brulee are probably my three favorite dessert dishes. I know that might sound like really foo-foo of me.
Yeah,
like,
it's a little bougie of you, Kirby.
Tiramisu.
We're just talking about shots of gravy, and then all of a sudden you.
Yeah. There's something about, I guess the most of them are kind of custard based, at least flan and creme brulee are kind of custard based. And I like the idea of the semi-solidness of them. But tiramisu, that coffee flavor from the coffee liqueur and the I forget the lady fingers that are part of it. Just amazing, especially if it's made with alcohol. Tiramisu is phenomenal.
Ladies, get you a man who could do both, who can slam a boat of gravy, but then also put on a matching suit and tie and sit down with you and have tiramisu.
And I don't discriminate for people or food. I will eat all the people's foods, like all the cultures. For my birthday recently, we had Jaeger Schnitzel and Spätzle, which was two very German dishes.
Yeah.
And then I requested for my cake, I wanted ube, and ube is Filipino purple yam cake. And the reason It's so good, man.
So
The
where do
only
you
reason
get
I
this
know
from?
that is because my son's baby mama is Filipino, so my granddaughter is half Filipino. So they've brought
Okay.
over this ube cake before, and it's just so good. You actually make a meringue, and then you add the meringue to the cake batter. So like it doesn't go on it; it goes in it, and then you actually add the ube, which is yam. It gets mixed in, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then usually coconut goes on it.
I'm like, I feel like I have the opportunity to try this, but I'm like sort of pissed because my sister has been dating a Filipino guy who's a great guy for like years. And I haven't been invited to one of their family parties yet. And I feel like their family parties I always hear stories of them just being like outrageous and like buffets worth of shit. Obviously, they haven't had a ton recently, but like, I that's what my goal is to get invited to one of these things. And hopefully that cake is there.
They'll definitely know about it, and I'm sure that they'll have had it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is Filipino egg rolls. I feel are much superior to Chinese egg rolls. It's done with a much thinner rice paper, and they're to die for. They're so good.
All right, I'm gonna text him and say Mike. His name's Mike. I'm gonna say I want this and this once we're all vaccinated.
I want ube, ube, ube.
Yeah, I just
Googled
Googled it. Yeah, I have it Googled. One of them looks like a giant Swiss roll, like a little Debbie Swiss roll, but it's an ube cake roll.
That's a ube
it
cake
can be
roll.
done like that. Yeah, it's an ube cake roll, and then there's like coconut on the outside and cream through the different layers. Yeah.
Oh shit.
It's pretty sick. But my wife made it from scratch for me because she couldn't find a Filipino bakery anywhere nearby. So she's like, I'll just make it. And then, she made a great version of it. Like the Jaeger Schnitzel and the Spätzle were from scratch too. So I guess I have a good woman. You know, she introduced me to fashion. She feeds me really well. She, affords me this luxury of indulging myself in professional wrestling, and she's very supportive of that and wants me to go out there and do it. So yeah, I'm incredibly blessed as far as that's concerned.
Amazing person to be quarantined with.
Right? Yeah.
Kirby, what do you want for Christmas this year?
Man, I'm hard to buy for Christmas because I tend to pick up a lot of things that I want throughout the year, and I'm also maybe I'm a little bit of a snob when it comes to Christmas gifts. I don't want you to buy anything that you would have bought me anyways. So like, you're going to buy me clothes throughout the year. Like, I'm going to get clothes. I'm going to be clothes. I'm not going to run around naked. So don't get me clothes as a gift. Clothes aren't a gift. They're a necessity. I don't want you to buy me clothes. You're going to buy me the clothes anyways. You're going to get me new socks. You're going to get me cool shirts and shoes. Don't make them my gifts. You're ripping me off. No, but I don't know. I really don't know that I have an answer this year. Yeah, I always enjoy a couple new board games, technology. Like I said before, just I like to be surprised. That's the other thing is Danny could tell me your gifts are under the sink, and I will never go near it. Like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be surprised. So, like, I don't want anything to be ruined. So I don't ask a lot anymore for gifts. I get a lot of them. But I like to be surprised. I like them to throw their twist on what they think, I would like to have. And I just try to be as appreciative as possible as I can for whatever it is I get. It might be a sappy answer, but
it's the truth.
Well, Kirby, what the gift that you can give our listeners are your responses to word association.
That's a good transition.
Okay.
Nice segue. Right?
Yeah.
Trying.
Like
three Coronas in, finally kicked in.
Yeah, I have to pee. So after we do word association, while we're wrapping up, I'm going to go pee, but continue with the word association.
All right. So word association, the rule here is that you just give me the first one word that comes to mind after I read the following words. There are 10 of them.
Okay.
One word answers.
One word answers. So here we go.
I will do my best.
Chicago.
Pizza.
Nice.
Gali Lucha Libre.
Carlos.
Warrior Wrestling.
Variety.
Dreamwave.
Reminiscing.
Howard Finkel.
Legend.
Dusty Rhodes.
Trying to think of the right word. There's so many words I could say. Inspirational.
That's a good one.
Freelance Underground.
Home.
Chicago Matadors.
Bliss.
Michael Buffer.
Trendsetter.
Freelance Wrestling.
Home. Again. Am I allowed to repeat an answer?
I think because it's both
we'll allow
freelance.
it. It's under the freelance umbrella. We know freelance is home. So there you go.
There you go.
Those are your 10 words.
All right. I'm going to continue to talk, and Kirby did a phenomenal job. I think I'm going to pee in my pants, so I got to go really quickly, and I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
All right.
Have fun.
All right. We're going to leave it all in. We're not editing any of that. So while Charlie takes a pee break, when we talked about one of the words that I mentioned, Chicago Matadors, you left a little bit. I think this, if you know Kirby, you know why we put that word in there. But for those who don't know Kirby, the voice, can you just give us a quick story about the Chicago Matadors?
Yeah, so I was in radio for a really long time, working in promotions, and got burnt out on the radio industry, and went into sports kind of marketing and community relations. And I was working for the White Sox, and I was helping run their 50-50 split the pot.
Oh, okay.
And so I helped run that for years. And then I got picked up by the Bulls to work in their community relations department and run that raffle as well. And so I'm sitting at a table selling tickets one night, and many nights, and I would see these big guys, these hosses, dancing around and having a crazy good time. And I remember when they came to town, I was still in radio at the time when they had the very first auditions. And someone had encouraged me, to go do it. Like, you should go do this. I'm like, no, whatever. And then when I met the guys years later, they kept the same team for 3 years. So after the initial audition, they didn't do any more auditions. They kept the same team for 3 years. And one of them approached me, Kevin was his name, and he's like, hey, we're having auditions, this coming Saturday. It's the first time we're having auditions. We have a bunch of our members that are leaving. You should come out and audition. Da, da, da. I'm like, oh yeah, sure, whatever. I kind of blew it off, and literally hadn't thought about it since. And then Saturday morning, woke up and I was like, I need to get ready and go to these auditions. Had no thought about it previously in the week. I just woke up thinking I got to go do this. So I just got up, looked it up on the internet, where it was, what I had to do, and went to the auditions that morning and made the team. And so what the Matadors are is an all-male, all-fat dance squad that dances for the Chicago Bulls. They don't need more. They stopped doing it about 8 years ago, but we had a reunion show about 3 years ago that I was able to be a part of. But yeah, we would dance during timeouts, and we would also do some big halftime performances with the Lovables, and it was legit. So our choreographer was the same person who choreographed the Lovables. So she was making us do stuff that most fat people don't do with their bodies. And, we just went out there and the crowd ate it up, similar to wrestling.
Right.
The crowd was into it. They saw how much passion we were bringing to it. And we weren't the best dancers. We were a dance comedy act. And but they respected it and they loved it and they ate it up. And it afforded me some amazing luxuries. I got to be on the first season of America's Got Talent. We got 3 X's from the Hoff, and it was the very first season. So Hoff and the young black actress, she ended up passing away, and I forget the third guy. The third guy was the token British mean guy.
Okay.
So the 3 of them, gave us X's, and it was interesting because the live crowd was so into us. And then when you watch it on television, they show the crowd booing us and stuff, but it's all B-roll because it actually didn't happen that way. I'm like, oh my God, like I remember this little girl giving an X to people, but it wasn't to us. It was like to someone else earlier in the show. So like they totally, they create what they want to create. It's television, so quick tangent. People always want to wrestling. People always want to say wrestling's fake, right? And I go, so is the Cosby's. Everything on television is fake.
I agree.
So yeah, that's just a glimpse into reality shows are not real. Surprise, surprise. So yeah, we did the first season of America's Got Talent. I got flown out to Greece to do the European All-Star Game and the island of Cyprus to do the Greek All-Star Game. I think, or it was the other way around. I think it was the Greek All-Star Game in Greece and the European All-Star Game on the island of Cyprus. Got flown out there to do those. Got flown out to LA to do the AGT. All for being fat and funny. Not too shabby, man. Not too shabby. And we got to perform at like a dozen games a year. And I got to bring friends and family, and they fed us. All the food was free. It was good times, man. We got to do, like we would like sit when we knew we were about to come out. We would sit under the basket, but like as far back as you can, but like still like there would be like body parts like nuts flying at our face, like while they're making the last dunk, because we know there's going to be a timeout called at any second. As soon as it's called, we have to bolt onto the court, dance for 30 seconds, and run off. And as we're running off, the players are like coming on, and we're like trying to dodge around them and like not take anybody out. And most of the Bulls players loved us, but the other teams hated us, like, because we would run through them, and like we weren't as nice about running through them as we were about running through our own team. So yeah, but no, I did that for about 3 or 4 years, and actually lost a lot of weight while I was doing it, and ended up being like going from being one of the largest guys on the team to one of the smallest guys on the team, and then just ended up stepping away from it after about 4 years.
Nice.
Well, it's always, so funny to see that, from radio to the Matadors to the Logan Square Auditorium, like your journey it's always full of interesting stories.
Yep.
And now, in this, pandemic era where, things are uncertain, like we don't know when is the next show. It's really good to, for you to open up your schedule and talk to us late at night, after, scheduling and rescheduling. So Kirby, I want to thank you for jumping on.
Yes.
For sharing your stories, for allowing our listeners to get to know you a little bit better. So now the next time that they see a well-dressed guy announcing, whether it's Gringo, Isaias, any, local Chicago guys, and, legends too, because you've done that as well. Now they know who Kirby the Voice is.
I appreciate that very much. Like I said, I appreciate what you guys are doing for the business. It was an absolute pleasure to be here. I'll talk to you for another 2 hours. I don't care. we can just keep going, man. You guys are drinking. It's a beautiful thing. But no, I understand. No one wants to listen to a 6-hour podcast. So we should probably cut it off here. But no, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome. I love seeing you at the shows. I love talking to you right now. Best of luck with everything going forward, throughout the holidays and the pandemic. Be safe, guys, and thank you.
Absolutely. Stay safe. And Kirby, the best way for people to get a hold of you is Twitter at Kirby the Voice.
Yeah, at Kirby the Voice on Twitter. I don't do Insta. So that's pretty much the main route right there. So yeah, feel free to come on over and follow me there if you're so inclined.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kirby.
Thank you. Peace.
Peace.
Peace. All right.